They told him to evacuate. He refused. Alone on a jungle hilltop in Laos, surrounded by hundreds of enemy soldiers, he picked up a machine gun and made his final stand. As flames closed in and enemy bullets zipped through the air, Staff Sergeant Jon R. Cavaiani wasn't thinking about medals. He was thinking about the men he had to protect. This wasn't just courage. This was something deeper, something primal. This is the story of one of the most fearless acts in the Vietnam War, an event so intense, so personal, it nearly vanished from history, until the man who lived it came home. Jon R. Cavaiani was born in wartime England in 1943 but immigrated to the United States as a child. Raised on a farm in California, Jon learned early how to work hard and fight through adversity. He wasn't the biggest, the fastest, or the loudest, but he was relentless. In 1969, he attempted to enlist, but failed a medical examination due to his severe allergy to bee stings. Cavaiani displayed the tenacity that would later define his service, searching for and eventually finding a doctor that offered him a waiver. In late 1969, Cavaiani successfully enlisted in Fresno, California, and departed for Special Forces selection. He passed selection in 1970 and deployed to Vietnam as a weapons specialist. In time, he earned his place among the elite, the U.S. Army Special Forces, the legendary Green Berets. But Cavaiani wasn't just any Green Beret. He was recruited into Task Force 1, Vietnam Training Advisory Group, later known as the Military Advisory Command, Vietnam Studies and Observations Group, or MACV-SOG, a covert special operation group that conducted deep reconnaissance missions in Cambodia and Laos. These soldiers fought behind enemy lines, often without support, often without recognition. By war's end, MACV-SOG special operators had a 100% casualty rate. Their missions were classified, their actions were deniable, and their survival was never guaranteed. In early June 1971, Cavaiani's team was assigned to secure and defend a top-secret radio relay site on Hill 950 for the Army Security Agency's Explorer system. Explorer was a sophisticated sensing device enabling a small team of Americans to monitor the sensors, read the data coming into the Explorer system, and report findings to higher headquarters. Jon and his platoon were given the responsibility of providing security for his team and ensuring the highly sensitive equipment of Explorer didn't fall into enemy hands. The Russians and Chinese communists had been trying for years to get this technology and would have paid a hefty price to North Vietnam officials for the capture of one of these systems. Hill 950 was also known as Hickory Hill. Located deep in the Laotian jungle, the site sat near the Ho Chi Minh Trail, a lifeline for the North Vietnamese Army. The outpost was known for its role as a key position during the Battle of Khe Sanh in the 68 Tet Offensive. When Cavaiani took command, the remaining elements defending the hill amounted to 13 American advisors and 60 Montagnards defenders. The purpose of the mission was to re-establish the outpost located within enemy-held territory and monitor movement of enemy forces into and out of South Vietnam. For 2 days, Cavaiani and his team of 73 men monitored traffic, intercepted signals, and relayed critical intelligence. But soon enemy chatter revealed something more alarming. A major assault was imminent. The Explorer team reported significant movement of men and equipment coming from the north and moving south. These reports were either ignored or disbelieved, for no interdiction was taken by U.S. or South Vietnamese forces. After about a month, the team on Hickory had strong indications that the enemy had plans to attack and take the hill as they saw significant enemy activity in that area. Despite being at an elevated location, or perhaps because of the elevation, fog at times would set in limiting visibility. The morning of 4 June 1971 was such an occasion. During the night, heavy fog had limited visibility around the perimeter. Even when using night vision goggles designed to see in limited light, such as starlight on a moonless night, the visibility was almost nil. That morning, the fog was reluctant to burn off as it was wanting to hang over the hill like a blanket of fluffy snow. The winds were too light to move it away, and the sun was slow in dissipating the mist. Sergeant Roger Hill and 3 others were outside of the perimeter checking security around the lower helipad. Visibility began to improve, and that is when they began receiving small arms fire. NVA forces atop Hill 1015 started firing rockets down into the area. Sergeant Hill was wounded in the hand. Ralph Morgan grabbed his M16 and began returning fire to provide the 4 men opportunity to rush back into the perimeter. He rushed to an M60 machine gun that offered greater suppressing fire against the enemy on Hill 1015. SP-4 Millsap manned another machine gun and began to place fire on the hill and Saddle Ridge. He then assisted a wounded officer and protected him when a rocket exploded nearby. In the early hours of the battle, Captain Valersky, 2nd Lieutenant Holland, Specialist Millsap, and Sergeant Hill were wounded. A full NVA battalion, over 500 enemy soldiers, swarmed Hickory Hill. The battle was fierce. The NVA were scampering, firing, and charging ahead in a blend of terrifying assaults. Some of the NVA had gained the ridge above the camp, and this high ground allowed them an unobstructed view of about 70% of the camp. Those on this high ground rained direct fire down onto the camp. Rocket-propelled grenade launchers poured rockets into the perimeter as well as rifle machine gun fire. The rounds peppering down limited the Green Beret men and their Montagnard mates from maneuvering into better positions to gain advantage and return well-aimed fire. It wasn't just a fight for the hill, it was a fight for survival. Later in life, John would reflect, quote, "I could not run him, so I had to fight him." And fight he did. Cavaiani raced from position to position, coordinating defense, issuing commands, treating the wounded. He held the perimeter together through sheer will and tactical precision. After hours of intense fighting, higher command authorized an evacuation. Medevac helicopters made dangerous low passes. John's actions throughout the day held off the attackers and helped the evacuation of most of his men. It seemed imminent that an overwhelming large enemy force was sure to annihilate those who remained atop Hickory. Still fighting for their lives were 16 Montagnards, another Special Forces sergeant named John Jones, and John Cavaiani. In an attempt to hold on to the back half of the camp, John crawled to the front half and prepared a booby trap to greet the next assault wave. He rigged a 105mm artillery round so that he could detonate it at the appropriate time. He placed mortar rounds and other equipment around it so these too could cause harm and/or be damaged beyond use by the enemy. At about 8 o'clock in the evening, just as the sun was setting, the enemy renewed its assault on the small camp. As the advancing enemy breached the wire, crawled up and over the berm, and swarmed into the front part of the camp, John detonated the artillery round. The explosion created a huge crater and blew dozens of NVA soldiers off the ridgeline. With that huge blast, the enemy retreated. However, about 2 hours later, the North Vietnamese renewed their assault. At first, they came in groups of about 10, moving more cautiously than before in case there were more booby traps. As the confidence grew, they began to send wave after wave of about 15 attackers in groups. Because John had set the few remaining men in positions that created a crossfire along the bottlenecked entry into the back part of the camp, many enemy soldiers were killed and wounded. It was a long night of human wave assaults. It was dangerously close, and after each assault, during the few moments of respite, wounded would be tended to and ammunition redistributed. John was in contact with a Stinger orbiting overhead. It was a C-119 with a Gatling gun that would put bursts of rounds on the perimeter. The Stinger also dropped illumination flares. The flares gave an eerie effect to the life and death drama. Jones manned the communications while John and the Montagnards fought. John used the machine guns and focused the direction of fire on the remaining few. Through the night, they withstood the incessant barrage of rocket fire, mortars, and small arms fire. They beat back wave after wave of charging enemy. Shortly after 0500 hours, but just prior to the NVA breaching the perimeter en masse, John and Sergeant Jones passed the word to the Montagnards to try and escape off the mountain. Knowing that they couldn't hold out much longer, John ordered the Montagnards to Didi Mao, boogie out of the camp, and had Jones call for the Stinger to fire on their position. As they all headed over one of the steepest slopes of the hill, John was shot in the back near the spine. His men came to help him, but he ordered them to go. He covered their escape with blazing M60 machine gun fire. When the enemy took control of Hickory, the two Americans huddled in the small bunker about 7 by 7 feet in size and waited. The bunker had a thick sandbag cover and only one trench-like slit for entry. They waited for the inevitable moment of their discovery, likely to be killed by the enemy. The NVA death toll was somewhere between 300 and 400. The North Vietnamese were initially so excited about taking the hill that they failed to search the bunkers. But then 2 of them came to the access and entered one at a time. John let the first man go past him, then swiftly killed the second man with his knife. Jones took on the lead man, but in that struggle, despite killing the North Vietnamese soldier, shots were fired, which alerted the enemy above. A grenade was thrown into the bunker, wounding John and Jones severely. Realizing they were surely trapped, Jones crawled out of the bunker to surrender, but he was killed immediately by a North Vietnamese soldier. Another grenade was tossed into the bunker to finish off anyone else inside. Only John remained, and the blast deafened him and caused more hemorrhaging. It also destroyed the last line of communications for John as it tore apart their one remaining radio. Up until that time, Americans in the Stinger above and back at Special Forces headquarters had been monitoring the entire battle, hearing everything up to the final grenade. Hours later, after the morning fog burnt off, reconnaissance aircraft could see the outpost and confirm that it indeed had been overrun. Hickory Hill was now in the hands of the enemy. Back home, the Army listed him as missing in action. His family believed he had died in the final defense of Hickory Hill. His name was read in memorial services. Tributes were written. But John was still alive and enduring 14 months of captivity in the brutal prison camps of North Vietnam. He was interrogated, beaten, and starved. He never gave up information. He never stopped resisting. He attempted escape twice, both times caught, both times punished severely. When he was finally released during Operation Homecoming in '73, he stepped off the plane gaunt, battle-scarred, and walking with a limp, but still proud, still standing. The legend of what happened on Hickory Hill had spread through the ranks, but until John came home, few knew the full truth. Eyewitness accounts and debriefs confirmed what his teammates had seen. Jon R. Cavaiani had chosen to stay and fight, knowing it could cost him his life. He had coordinated a flawless evacuation, defended the hill to the last stand, and survived a hopeless fight so others could live. On December 12, 1974, President Gerald Ford presented him with the Medal of Honor in a White House ceremony. His indomitable courage, complete disregard for personal safety, and profound concern for his fellow soldiers were in keeping with the highest traditions of military service. Cavaiani went on to serve for nearly 2 more decades, retiring as a sergeant major. He mentored young soldiers, advocated for POW MIA causes, and never stopped serving. John Cavaiani passed away in 2014 at the age of 70 after a battle with cancer. He was buried at Arlington National Cemetery alongside the very heroes he fought next to. But his story continues, taught in military academies, told in whispered stories across campfires and barracks. His name lives on in memorials, unit histories, and among those who understand what sacrifice truly means. Cavaiani didn't make a last stand to be remembered. He did it because it was the right thing to do. He chose to face death so his brothers might live. Later in life, John would say, "I was just doing my job, and I did what any one of my guys in that position would do." Thank you for watching this episode. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and share it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Militology Channel. Stay tuned.